Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. A talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is internationally syndicated solely due to the love and support that you all continue to give. We're available across all major distributors, and as long as you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in, because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Marguerite Nardone Gruen. Now we're going to be discussing her incredible novel, The Madness of March, a love story. It's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, man, it's a lot of other places. Simply type it into a search bar, sit back, be greeted with them all. But most importantly, you're going to want to do yourself a favor and check out her personal website. And that's author MargueriteGruen.com. There, gather more information on her, on this book, hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing pages. But people, get this. This is not the only book that she's written. Okay, now there's another series. It's a 3-part series, and that one is entitled The Band 4. You're going to want to pick up all of these amazing books, and once again, that's author MargueriteGruen.com. And I quickly want to take this opportunity and point out the fact that she was brought to us by Kravitz & Sons. So for writers out there listening in who have gone through their process and now you need some assistance moving the book you just worked so hard to create, well, if that's you, head on over to KravitzandSons.com and gather all of the ways that their fantastic team is more than equipped to help you do just that. Listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Marguerite here on the line. Yeah, you see the title, all right? You got an idea, but it's a play on words, right? The Madness of March, not to be confused with March Madness, although it dabbles in that to a degree, okay? Because every sports fan listening in right now, you understand the thrill of a Cinderella story, right? But what about the teammate who almost didn't make it off the bench of his own life? Now, it's an interesting question, and one that I pose here for you, and it really sets things up, okay? We are diving into a novel that asks what it truly costs to save someone from themselves. Now, it's interesting, just a quick side note, I feel like my wife and I, we do this all the time with our children. You know, we got to set things up for them to save them from themselves because they're constantly getting themselves into something, but that's neither here nor there. We have Marguerite here on the line with us to unpack a story of brotherhood tested by addiction, by fame, and even a devastating secret. This, this is The Madness of March, and it's one you're not going to be able to put down once you pick it up. Sit back and get ready. Marguerite, first and foremost, welcome to the network, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you today?
I'm pretty good, and thank you, Benji, for having me. I'm always excited to talk about my books. And everything you said about the Madness of March was true. Mm-hmm. The people around you build you. They build your character. They help you build your life. And that's exactly what's happening in this book here. If you hang around with good people, then your life is going to be good. If you hang around with questionable people, then your life might go down the tubes.
You know, and I love that, Marguerite. Listen, first and foremost, the novel is entertaining to no end, right? So it's a great read, but it carries a wonderful message. And instantly, when we were doing research in preparation for the book, like the quote that kept coming to mind, and I'm sure you have heard it as well as so many others, is, "Tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are." And it's such a great connection, and it rings true to today. Like, the people you hang around with are really going to help either pave a pathway for you or potentially destroy it, depending on where you are. I love that notion, and I think it's one that everyone is going to be able to gravitate towards. So again, welcome to the network. Let's start off first and foremost. Marguerite, tell us more about yourself and your background.
Well, my background is in inventories. You're not going to believe this. It was not my aspiration to be a writer. I love inventories. I controlled inventories for Kraft Foods and Nabisco and Cadbury. I controlled inventories in warehouses around the world with those products. So it has nothing to do. Sometimes I can't even write out a sympathy card. So when I started to sit down and write, and all of a sudden I had 300 pages of a love story, I was shocked myself. I couldn't believe it because I just couldn't believe I could sit there and pound off love stories like that. Mm-hmm. And it was fun to do. It was very fun. And when you write a hard part, I would wind up crying at my computer and I'd have to get up. I'd have to get up and leave and go sit down and calm down because I'd get so involved in the characters. I would be blubbering like a fool until I could, stop it, until I could stop crying over a sad part, So it was not my aspiration. I actually had a dream one night, and I kept thinking about the dream for weeks later. And usually you don't remember your dreams.
Yeah.
9 out of 10 times you don't remember your dreams. And I just kept dreaming about this couple in my dream, and I just felt like it was trying to tell me something, or they were trying to tell me something. So that's what happened with the first book, the Band 4, The Air We Breathe. I sat down. I figured I would just sit down and see if I could write something about it. And before I knew it, I had a book finished. And that's how it all started. And, a long time ago when Stephanie Meyer wrote the Twilight books, she did an interview and she said, I had a dream, and that's how I wrote the books. And at the time I thought, well, how could she write 4 books with one dream? Did you have 4 dreams? And here, what you do is you have the dream and you keep thinking about the couple and the circumstances they're in. And before you know it, you have 1 book, you have 2 books, you have 3 books. And especially if people keep telling you, don't stop writing, I want to know more about the couple. And then you just keep going. And to this day, I still think about that couple, but I stopped it at 3. So that's exactly what happened.
Perfect. So now, listen, I'm following what you're putting down here. So we know about your background, and we know really what started you on this writing journey, right? And the dream that transpired. Well, now let's fast forward to the madness of March. What made you want to set a story about addiction, love, and redemption inside the world of college basketball?
Well, what happened was my husband and I, when we dated, and then when we got married, the University of Scranton here, because I live in between Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. The University of Scranton, their basketball program was just taking off, and we decided for something to do twice a week, we would go up to the city and take a look at the games. Well, it turns out they were so good that sometimes you couldn't even get a seat. And we would run up, or I would run up, or my husband would run up during before the game to try and get the tickets because sometimes they'd be sold out. And I love sports. I love college football. I love the NFL. I love college basketball. Not too much the NBA. And so now that all of that is over, like my husband and I, we have a hard time watching something on TV because everything we like is done. But I thought after the 3rd book, Mam and Chase, that the trilogy, the Band 4 trilogy, I wouldn't write anymore because I didn't have anything. And then March Madness was coming on, and I turned to my husband and I said, remember how wild the games at the university used to be? And the light bulb went on. And I just said, that's what I'm going to write. I'm going to write about a guy, a basketball star, going down the tubes because of the lifestyle that he chose, and how fame made him like that. And it started from there, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I had all of that information. And that's where I went with it.
It's interesting, man, like that moment of inspiration, like once it really hits you, you are like a freight train just flying down, and it pours out of you. And it's something that as an artist myself, like it resonates and I respect it to no end. People, I'm telling you, we're just scratching the surface. Head on over again, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, author MargueriteGruen.com. Pick up copies of The Madness of March, but remember, there are 3 other books, and those are a series entitled The Band 4. You're going to want to get your hands on every single one of them. Again, author MargueriteGruen.com. Marguerite, my next question that I want to go into, so we know a little bit about the book. We know about the inspiration. I'm curious from a writing perspective. You mentioned before about, listen, sometimes you hit a hard moment, you might be crying for God knows how long. Talk to us about that writing process and some of the ebbs and the flows. What was a highlight for you through it all?
The highlight of the book, I think, was the end, and it was the epilogue. Believe me, it was the epilogue, because I cried during that, and I can't give it away. I can't give it away, the epilogue of the book, but I think how the book ended was perfect, and how the epilogue tied everything together was just, thinking about it now just gave me the chills, because the epilogue itself just tied everything together.
Yeah.
And, I think you can agree with me on this one. You can't just sit down and write.
Right.
You have to be, I don't want to say in the mood, but you have to have an idea. You can't force yourself to write something. You can't force yourself to have an idea. It has to come to you, and then you go full steam ahead. Do you find that too?
Absolutely. Well, listen, and not from a writing perspective, because unfortunately I was never blessed with that artistry. But yeah, like when I'm creating, whether it's a film script or even filming something, absolutely. Like there are times where that creative spirit has to be going, right? Because it just makes the work much more enjoyable, but it also, I find that my best work comes from that, right? And when I'm invested in such a way, it absolutely makes all the difference. So I understand what you're saying and completely and wholeheartedly agree.
Yes. And, to this day, I pick up the books and I flip through them and I look at a paragraph, just one paragraph, and I say, you wrote every word of that. I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. Like, why did this happen to me? Sometimes I just have to ask, why did this happen to me?
Marguerite, my next question that I want to go into, I'm curious, like throughout all of this time and people that you have spoken to about the book, readers of the book, what's one small detail or even a quiet moment in the book that you hope your readers don't miss?
I hope they don't miss a part of the book that her relationship with her father and how they reconcile. I hope they don't miss that. Something happens to her, and when her father finds out, that's how they reconcile. He's just upset that he wasn't speaking to her that much, and he actually reconciles with his whole family. And that's one thing I want everybody to see, because I'll tell you, there's problems in every family. No family is perfect. And every now and then you do get a situation where somebody's now talking to somebody else, and that means you can't talk to them too. And but I want everybody to see that. Another thing though is I asked my friends in particular, because I go through a lot of basketball games, like I'm calling basketball games almost, and I say to them, especially the ones that aren't familiar, that don't like sports or anything like that, I asked them if they were able to follow the basketball games. And they said, oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know anything about basketball, but the way you described it, I was actually there. So I was very happy about that also.
Love that. Marguerite, again, going towards that writing process, but talk to us, out of all of the characters that you've created, which character surprised you the most?
The character that surprised me the most was Nikki. Nikki, who's in the book. It's Paul's best friend, and it's Nikki, because something happens in the book, and they're gonna be really surprised about Nikki. And he was his best friend, and Nikki had his own problems with his family, and they were brothers. Yeah. They turned out to be brothers, and I love that kind of relationship, because you always have that friend that is family.
Absolutely.
Don't you think? Like you always have a friend that you consider a brother or a sister or a cousin, but you don't consider them a non-family member. They are your family.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm surprised about. I was surprised about Nicky and how his story went.
Marguerite, as we close out here, I think it's safe to assume, but I'm not going to do that. So, yeah, I have you here on the line. Let me ask. It's going to be a two-part question here. First and foremost, who would you
Okay.
say is your intended reader for the book? And after they close that final page, what is the message that you hope that they take with them?
Well, there's a good message in the book. First of all, the message is watch out what you do when you're young because your past follows you throughout your whole life.
Yeah.
And really it does. And I could attest to that myself. Maybe a mistake I made a long time ago. Sometimes I still think about it, and it does follow you throughout your whole life. But also, I just think that I want everybody to read the book. Well, it's kind of like a chick book for athletic women, for athletic women. But I think that if that person isn't fond of their spouse or boyfriend watching March Madness, they could sit down and read the book.
Love
They
that.
can read the love story about March Madness. Yes. maybe they'll get interested in it. Maybe they'll get interested in sports.
Marguerite, I think that's the best plug that we could have put out this entire time. I mean, I can't think of a better gift now to give to my wife when I'm sitting down watching sports. There you go. Go ahead and read this. And it's kind of like you're participating.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. People,
yes, good one.
Listen, I'm going to say it for you all again, although I know you already are heading there, right? You're already purchasing copies of this amazing book. But for everybody else, remember it's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, author MargueriteGruen.com. The Madness of March is the one we discussed today, but the Band 4 is a 3-part series you're going to want to get your hands on as well. And remember, the Madness of March, yeah, it has some influences from sports, but this is not a story about basketball. It's a gut check, man. It's a gut check about the ghosts that we carry and the people who help us outrun them. Marguerite just brought up a second ago in terms of be mindful of what you do, the decisions you make, because your past, it follows you, man. In the Madness of March, it leaves us with a haunting truth, and that is that our past may always find us, right? We can't outrun it, but it doesn't get the final word. There are things that you can do. It doesn't have to be a burden or a title that you wear. Grab this book, and I want you all to ask yourself, who in your life is worth fighting for until the last buzzer sounds? This is such an amazing book that has a powerful message that we can all benefit from. But it starts with grabbing your copies and embarking upon that journey today so you know where to go. Marguerite, this has been an absolute pleasure. Such a wonderful conversation. Keep up the fantastic work. We'd love to have you back on the network in the future. And in the interim, stay healthy, stay safe, and thank you for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Benji. Thank you so much.